So I thought it was time for a new career advice video. This is going to be a talking head video, so uh, if you don't like my head, I apologize ahead of time. But what this is going to be is I'm going to talk about freelancing, specifically my experiences with it. And it's true I've only been doing it about a year and a half, but I think that I've learned some good stuff along the way. And I think I have some good knowledge to impart to anyone who might be thinking about trying it, or anyone who's just curious about what it is and what it's like to work on your own every day from home and that kind of thing. So this will be kind of a mishmash, of advice and tips and just my thoughts on freelancing. So hopefully you can get some value out of this. So I guess there's the question of who should freelance. And I think that there's a perception that it's a young person's game, because somebody with 3 young kids and a wife and a big house in the suburbs and a couple of car payments, it's not just going to up and quit and go freelance. It's just not realistic. And obviously that's true to a large degree. I mean, you can't just put your family at risk and start freelancing, but you can, if it's planned properly. Like if you have a process where over the course of a year you build up a financial nest egg to stand on, and you line up some clients ahead of time and that kind of stuff. So I think it's not necessarily anything to do with age, and more to do with how expensive is your lifestyle, and how much income do you need each month to come in. Obviously the less the better, because income as a freelancer can be sporadic, depending on how the clients are lining up and how long the contracts are that you have and how proactive you are at lining up new work, because that's a skill that you will have to learn, and until you do, it might be spotty. Like when I got started with the freelancing thing, my plan initially was to make asset packs for the various marketplaces, and that was going to be my job basically. And that still is something that I want to do, but what ultimately took over for me was doing freelance work for clients. It's I'm not even sure why. It's just like when I started out, I said I wasn't going to do that, and then I was like, well, actually I kind of like that idea, because I get to work on different stuff and see different games and work with different people, and that was appealing to me. So it's all about personal goals, and I feel now mentally that I'm going to start meandering a little bit, so maybe we'll just move on to the next section. But I will say, on the question of who should freelance, it should be somebody who's thought about it, who's planned for it, and somebody who functions well by themselves, because there are no coworkers around save your dog. So I tossed this back and forth. I wasn't sure whether I was going to actually try to answer this question or not, because how to find client work is a very different thing for me as opposed to somebody who's just getting out of school. Because me working for 15 years at Epic Games on Unreal Tournament and Gears of War and that kind of stuff, that opens up a lot of doors for me that are not open for that other guy. But I can offer some basic advice anyway. And the big one I would say is that you're going to have to get used to rejection. You're going to apply to a lot of places, and you're going to be met with silence. And if not silence, you'll get rejections. I've had plenty of rejection, lots of it, right? You just have to get used to it and recognize that it's not personal. They're running a business, and so they want someone they can rely on, who fits their budget, who's available when they need them to be available, and that kind of thing. So how do you actually find those clients? Well, when it comes to AAA stuff, typically the answer there is that you've either worked with them before and they're approaching you to come back and do more work, or maybe Studio A has spoken to Studio B, who you've never worked for before, and recommended you. And so Studio B is asking you now, hey, are you available, and that kind of thing. That's much like finding a job in the games industry. Most jobs are gotten, or sorry, are gained through personal relationships. You know this guy who's friends with the art director, who gives you a good word, and gives you an in. Most jobs are not gained by mailing in resumes cold. It's just how it is. So if you're just starting out and you have little experience and you just want to get going, odds are you're not going to land a freelancing job with Bethesda or whatever, right? So hit up some forums like Polycount, for example. They have a whole section on their forum that is just for indie teams, well, and AAA teams, but it's just for people to post job openings. We need a contractor for XYZ. We need a contractor to do some environment work or some hard surface prop work or whatever, and apply to those like crazy. As they fit your skill set, apply to those like crazy. Again, expect a lot of rejection, and again, expect a lot of silence, but you will land some of those if your portfolio is any good, which I talk about in a different video. Once you land a few of those, you build relationships, you have referrals, and things get easier from that point forward. But those initial jobs are just pure hustle. That's really all they are. Just get out there and beat the streets and just keep hammering until something opens up. That's really the best advice I can give. So as a final note on that last section, one thing I would advise people do, especially if you're young and without experience, I would do the plan that I was going to do when I first started freelancing, which is to create asset packs to sell in the various marketplaces. The Unreal Marketplace and the Unity Asset Store being the big ones, but there are others that may or may not be worth your time. I'm not sure. But my plan was to create 1 or 2 asset packs each month and build up this library, which would provide me with a passive income stream each month that would take some of the pressure off while I was looking for those initial jobs. So, and I still feel that's a good path for someone to take, and it's a path that I actually am still planning to walk, but my time's been a little crunched lately. But yeah, having that passive income stream would definitely help you, because there's nothing that kills enthusiasm more than worrying about, where's the next mortgage payment coming from? How am I going to eat next week? That kind of thing. That kind of stuff builds up, causes stress, and pretty much ensures that you're not going to succeed. So there's one idea you can take directly from me. Establish some sort of a passive income stream. So the next few tips I have kind of all fall into the same umbrella of be professional. Being a professional, that should be your goal if you want to freelance full time. Being a professional could also be interpreted as being an adult or being, whatever. But it's a matter of you need to do all the little things that amateurs won't. For example, be organized with your documents. What I mean by this is your source art, obviously, because if you need to go back and do revisions, you need to have access to your source art. Your contracts that you signed, have them stored someplace, organized by client. You can easily retrieve them and look at them and look up terms or delivery dates or whatever needs to happen. There's nothing worse than being on a phone call with somebody. You ask them a question and it's like, oh, well, I'll look that up and get back to you and blah, blah, blah. Just Have everything organized in a simple folder structure that makes it easy to find the stuff that you need to find. It just makes you look solid. So working safe. This is one that I harp on a lot when people ask me, what's the best piece of advice I could give a young artist who wants to be freelancing, or anybody really who wants to be freelancing. You need to set yourself up in a way that allows you to work and not lose a bunch of time if some technical issue crops up. And some technical issue will crop up. Trust me, you were dealing with computers. Computers fail, hard drives die, video cards overheat, whatever it is, something's going to die. And if you're not positioned to protect yourself from that, then you're going to lose time, you're going to slip deadlines, and you're going to look bad. The client doesn't care that your hard drive exploded. I mean, yeah, they may have sympathy, but at the same time, their deadline remains the same. So some things that I do to protect myself. I work in my Dropbox folder. That's where all my client work lives. And what that allows me to do is, let's say my hard drive died, which it did recently. My SSD died on my main machine. And so I took the opportunity to upgrade to a new machine. But in that process, obviously, the files are not there anymore. But they are up in Dropbox. So once I installed Windows on the new machine and installed Dropbox and just let it sit for a couple hours, it had pulled all my files back down, and I was able to install a few apps and resume working. So I really only lost a couple of hours from a full hard drive failure. That's pretty good, in my opinion anyway. And Dropbox has other advantages. There's, I think you get a month of version control on files, so I can always go back and get an old version of something if I need it. Or if I screw up and delete something, I can always go back and undelete it. Those are huge advantages. Like, it doesn't sound like much, when you're just hearing someone like me talk about it, but when you experience it, I had an incident a couple of months back where I finger fudged and deleted my client work folder straight out of Dropbox, gone. And after the momentary panic, had passed, I was like, all right, this is Dropbox. Okay, fine. So I logged on the website, said, why don't you undelete that? And it did, and everything came back, and it was fine, and I carried on working. But those are the kind of events where if you're not prepared to handle them, and don't have systems in place, can be catastrophic. So work safe. Now, Dropbox is not, or I should say, Dropbox is not a replacement for an actual backup. It's a fantastic way to protect yourself live, but you should also have backups on hard drives. Some hard drives you keep off-site, maybe leave it at a friend's house or whatever. But yeah, in case your house burns down or whatever, or your Dropbox, who knows what can happen? Computers, right? Just be safe and be professional. Have backups, have version control. And yeah, be safe out there. So this is one of my big ones, and that's honesty. Be honest. And what I mean by that is, this is a small industry, and people know each other, and people know each other from way back. I mean, there's relationships that exist that you don't even know about. So people talk, and word gets around. And if you end up, with the reputation of being the contractor that drags jobs out to milk the most money out of the client, or you never hit your estimates, or you bill for time that you didn't actually work, and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just bad business. So in my personal opinion, whenever you're in a quandary as to what to do, just be honest. Clients appreciate it, and you'll look better for it. So when it comes to estimating your time, my advice kind of runs counter to what you see on some forums where they will advocate the Scotty from Star Trek principle. Try to be the hero. So, the art director asks you, hey, how long is that prop going to take? And you're like, well, it'll take 4 days. And you deliver in 2. And it's like, yeah, you're a hero. It's like, well, what you actually are is inaccurate. So now the art director doesn't actually know what to think when you say how long something will take. It's like, well, he said it's going to be 4 days, but that could be anywhere from 2 days to 6 days, depending on whatever's going on. So I just have to ping him every day now and put lots of padding around his estimates on the schedule because I don't know what he means when he says X days. So that was a lot of words to simply say, try to be accurate with your estimates. That helps out the art director and makes their job easier, which makes them like you more, which may lead to more work in the future. There's really nothing that turns an art director's crank more than an artist who delivers high quality work and delivers it on time when they said they would, because that allows them to say, okay, he's got this many days and he's going to do this much work, and they can have confidence that that's going to happen. Now life is not perfect. You're going to run over on some estimates and you're going to come under some estimates. It's just how it is. No one expects you to nail every single thing, but it's an iterative process. You need to get better each time. That's part of what being a professional is. You get better at your job, and part of your job is estimates. So yeah, just try to be honest about it. That's my advice. So the big question I get asked a lot is, how much should I charge? And that's not really something that I can answer for you, with a direct dollar figure, because it's a combination of things. How much experience do you have? What sort of artwork is it? What kind of a deadline are they imposing on you? And basically, how much do you need to eat and be happy working on this project? Because the number one fallout from not charging enough to work on something is not being motivated to work on that thing. Because you're like, oh, I've got that contract I have to work on, but I bid like $100 to make an AK-47 or something, and I'm already losing money because I had lunch today. That kind of thing. So it's important to charge what your time is actually worth. It's better for you and it's better for the client, because the client, they get quality work because they have your attention, because you're interested, because this is making you money, and that's what you're here for. Now, most young artists, well, I won't say most, that's unfair, but I've seen lots of young artists who get into this mindset of charging as little as they can to scoop up as many jobs as they can. And that works short term. But the problem is that if going back to the $100 gun, example, have bid $100 for a gun, with a client who's going to have a bunch of guns to build, you're now the $100 gun artist. So whenever they need a gun, they're going to come to you and they're going to expect you're going to charge about $100. And that's probably not worth your time, but you're committed now. And you've learned a very important lesson about pricing, which is that prices, when it comes to building for services, even retail really, prices can always come down. Prices can very rarely go up. So once you've committed to a price point, the odds of you being able to move up from there with that particular client are pretty slim. So charge what you're worth, charge what it will take to make you happy to work on this project, and everybody benefits. That's my advice without getting into specific numbers. So going along with the how much to charge question comes the how to charge question. And what I mean by that is, how are you going to get paid? Now, some clients that I've run into, they want to give you a spreadsheet, that has a list of all the stuff they want you to build, and they want you to fill in the spreadsheet, how much you're going to charge for each asset. And while that works for some artists, it depends on the project, but I typically don't like working that way. In my mind, that's a whole lot of overhead, and it's stuff that I have to track, and it's like a bunch of busyness because I have to figure out, okay, so I spent an hour on that today. I spent 2 hours on that other asset. That's starting to run over a little bit, so I need to watch that. And then it's a bunch of nitpicky work, basically. It's a bunch of work on top of the work that I want to be doing, which is making art. So my preference is that once you've established your day rate, which we talked about in the other section, just typically the client will give you a due date. We need these things built in 6 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it's going to be. So take your day rate, multiply it against how many business days you've got to work, and there's your estimate. So my contracts typically will end up with, okay, you'll pay me this amount of money for this amount of work to be completed on this date. And of course there's back and forth the whole way along because you want to iterate with the art director and all that kind of stuff. But it's far better for me creatively to simply say, okay, so on this date, I'm turning all this stuff in and I'm getting paid. That way there's no micromanagement. There's no timers I have to set up that run on my desktop to let me know how many hours I've spent on each particular thing. And for me, it's a removal of overhead that allows me to focus on being creative. It allows me to focus on the art, which is really what the client wants. My full attention on the artwork. So that's my opinion on that. So I think this is the answer that's going to get me in the most potential hot water, because there are contractors who have been legitimately burned through lack of a contract. And they've worked with some unfortunate clients who have either decided not to pay or give them a huge hassle at the end, or just had a bad experience. Now you have to couch my advice in the context of I haven't had a bad experience yet. Everybody I've worked with has been great. They've been honest, and typically I will start work whenever we agree on what the job is. Now, obviously, we want to have a signed contract eventually, but it's not something that I stand on as a firm rule that I won't start working until we have one, because right now I'm kind of trusting in my fellow man, and I'm just going to ride it until it bucks me. And if I get burned, I'll probably change my tune on this. But right now, as far as I'm concerned, my belief is most people are honest. Most clients are not looking to find an artist on the internet and trick them into working on this project and then screw them at the end because they didn't sign the contract or whatever. That's, in my opinion, that's a small minority of clients, because as soon as you do that, you're going to be all over social media telling every artist within earshot, never work with these people. So it's the kind of thing that only works once, which in my experience, in my belief, is not viable to getting your game built. So anyway, the short answer to this is that I believe there's goodness in most people. Most people are honest. Most people are not looking to burn you. Absolutely make sure you get a signed contract at some point before the project ends, but I don't feel you need to stand on it firm to get started. So firing clients, that sounds weird, doesn't it? And that sounds a little more harsh than what I'm actually saying here, but what this is that there will be times when you are working for someone and it's just not happening. You clash with the art director so badly, on a personal level, that you can't work together. And you didn't know that beforehand when you were talking to them. It just has come to light during the working relationship. Or perhaps they're disorganized and they're constantly changing the spec on you, and you're running over your estimates, and you can see it's going to take a lot more time than what you originally estimated. Or it's any number of reasons. But I do want to make clear that I'm not talking about violations of contract terms or whatever. This is more about your personal feel and your relationship, and can you deliver what they want you to deliver? Because sometimes it's best just to cut losses and go your separate ways. I would recommend you use this sparingly, because it's a small industry and you don't want to get the reputation of the contractor that always walks off the job. But I've done this once or twice with smaller teams because for the reasons I mentioned previously. Maybe they're disorganized. Maybe what they said the job was is not actually what the job is, and that kind of thing. So typically what I'll do is I will give them the source files for what I've done so far, and I'll say, look, here's the stuff I have. You can pass this on to the next artist. And I might even refund a part of their deposit or something, just as a goodwill gesture. Most clients, when you present this to them, will typically say, yeah, you're right, this is not working out, and we appreciate the honesty. As I think most people do, they appreciate honesty. So anyway, this was just a note to let you know that it is possible to walk from a bad situation. Don't feel like, I think people who have been in studio jobs for years and years and years, like I was, have a certain mentality that your employer is your employer, and you don't want to anger them or fail them or whatever, because they'll end up firing you. But as a freelancer, you're in a different position. It's a relationship, so you have to deliver for them, but they have to deliver for you as well. And if one side of that chain is not working, then sometimes it's best to walk. So take that for what it's worth. So I think that's it for this video. I know I haven't covered absolutely every topic, but if there is something that you want to talk about specifically related to freelancing, leave a comment down below, and I'll do the best I can to answer it. Again, I'm by no means any kind of an authority, but I have been doing it for a year and a half-ish now, and I feel that I have a decent grasp on it. So I hope this was at least informative in some way, and I'll see you next time.